Dr. Ashwin, do you need to register separately to vote for an MLC?
Not for an MLC in
MLC
general.
in graduate
Yes,
stuff.
as a graduate voter, yes, you do
Yes.
need to register separately. This is another area where the processes of administration have been very weak. Last time around, only 6% of the people who were eligible to vote registered, and only 2% of the people who 2% of the people who are eligible to vote actually voted. Now, I think part of the problem here is that the Election Commission has not done a good job of registering voters for this particular election. I mean, how can it be that in an average election for MLA or MP, 45, 55, 60% of the people vote, but in a graduate election, only 5% of the people register and 2% of the people vote? The frank answer is the Election Commission has made it ridiculously difficult to register. Even this time around, they say, oh, if you, like in my ward, I'll give you an example. I live in Konankonte ward. There is no designated registration center for Konankonte ward. I am told I can go to Shantinagar and register. Why the hell would somebody living in Konankonte go to Shantinagar to register? There is Arikire Maiko layout ward in front of my house across the ward boundary line. But I'm not allowed to register there even though it's in front of my house. These kinds of silly deterrents to registration are actually standing in the way of enrolling more people. If you really want enrollment, you should carry it out where the largest employers are. Voter registration should happen in Infosys and Wipro and Emphasis and some of the manufacturing in Pina and Bomsandra and places like that. Unfortunately, the Election Commission has taken a view that we have created a procedure for registration and it's up to the people to register. This is not really healthy for democracy.
Dr. Ashwin, did you take it up with the Election Commission?
Well, I did. I've sort of taken up a number of these issues with the Election Commission, partly through Smart Vote, which, as you know, has done a certain amount of this work in this past, partly through Lok Satta. I've also prepared a writ which I intend to take before the court if we don't get reasonable amount of resolution on some of these issues. And I think it's not so much a matter of not liking what the Election Commission does. I believe the process can be improved substantially, but it's understaffed and it's underdone. And without a proper direction from a higher authority, it may be difficult to break that thing.
Dr. Ashwin, can registration be done online?
Not for this election, no. Otherwise, they're allowing you to do regular registration online. For this election,
I'm a graduate, Dr. Ashwin. How should I go about it?
Well, the current procedure is as follows. There's a form that you need to fill out. You attach a copy of your degree certificate to that form, and you either drop it off in person at a registration center, or you send it by registered post, or if you don't want to do either of these things, even to send by registered post, you must first attest the degree certificate. That is, if you take it yourself,
self-attestation or from a gazetted officer?
From a limited set of gazetted officers, not even any gazetted officer.
What is the limited set means? How can you explain that?
Well, they have selected some gazetted officers and said only these gazetted officers can attest your degree certificate. I was suggesting something much simpler. What is it that happens when you accept my form? I go to the center, I show you my degree certificate, and I register to vote. My question is very simple. Why don't I just bring the degree certificate to the voting booth? To the voting booth. I'll bring the degree certificate to the voting booth. Whatever verification it is that you intended to do at your registration counter, do it at the voting booth and let me vote.
So this is unnecessary paperwork.
Well, this is the thing, right? The Election Commission is not particularly technology driven. That is the truth. And it's not even as good as some of the election commissions in the other states. Tamil Nadu has done a much better job of voter registration. Some other states, Gujarat is talking about online voting for municipal bodies. We're not able to keep pace with that, even though ours is the IT state.
IT city should be ahead of all the other states, other cities rather.
It's possible. It's only a matter of making that choice and taking that step.
Dr. Ashwin, voter apathy is a major problem in elections, in India particularly. Apathy among the urban educated voters is particularly very high. How do you propose to make them come out and vote?
Well, it's an interesting, the way you phrased it. If voter apathy among the educated urban voter is a problem, that's not a problem for this election, because the only class of voters who can vote are the educated. So you may get low turnouts, but that's not going to necessarily affect the contest itself. Everybody is struggling with the same problem. I'm sure other candidates too would like to have higher turnouts. In fact, more or less, this election has come down to the stage where whoever mobilizes more people to vote might actually decide who wins the election. And that's unfortunate. An election should be about not mobilization of people alone. It should be about the issues that are placed before the people and choices that people have to make their decision.
Dr. Ashwin, Do you think voters are ready for this kind of a change? A change means a person like you coming and contesting an election.
Voters were ready 50 years ago. This is the honest truth. Why wouldn't I or you or anybody else want competent people with an idea of public service, with some ideas of how government should be run? Why wouldn't anybody want such people to contest elections? The voters have always been ready. Unfortunately, it's the politics that has betrayed the system and made it harder for such people to come through. Even in large parties, it's difficult to find such people, right? If, let alone that, independents, small parties which are struggling with all sorts of odds. But why can't even the large parties have such people?
Are you contesting as an independent or as part of the Lok Satta party?
I'm a member of Lok Satta, certainly. But this election, the MLC election, is organized as a non-party election. And therefore, the usual practice will be for each of the parties to back a particular candidate. I'm obviously seeking and I expect to get Lok Satta support for this election. But at the same time, there will be other independent candidates who might have the support of different parties.
Lok Satta is the one which was formed by the IIT graduates?
No, that is Lok Paritran. Lok Satta was formed by Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan in Andhra Pradesh. This is essentially for 10 years or so, Lok Satta used to be what you and I would call an Andolan, a people's movement for civil rights, for electoral reforms, for judicial reforms and things like that. And again, in a few years ago, on the understanding that those things can only go so far, and you actually need to be in electoral politics, Lok Satta converted itself into a political party. And Dr. JP was elected to the Andhra Pradesh Assembly at that time and continues to be a member there. Slowly now there is a spread. There is a party unit in Maharashtra, in UP, in Delhi. I believe that this politics will take shape everywhere in the country. And elections obviously provide a standard step that you can take to galvanize these spaces as well. Even in Karnataka, I would say that yes, this is the MLC election, but in the MLA elections too, there will be candidates. In the BBMP elections, you may recall there were 5 candidates. Yes. And so in some way, it's a process of saying start small, but continue the process and grow into more and more contestable spaces.